All right, ladies and gents, we got a quiz day today. So we're looking at, we'll do the warm up here, then we will quiz review, have the key and a little video of me going over the quiz review, and then taking the 3-1, 3-2 quiz. So really, this quiz is just kind of about polynomials in general. We've talked about operations with them, like adding, subtracting, multiplying, how to name them, what their graphs look like, kind of the key features of their graphs. So this is a really general warm up here. So I wouldn't really put a question like this on a quiz because it's super broad, but we'll just kind of touch on all the main things you should know. So complete the subtraction. So we're going to subtract these two trinomials here. They're going to name it every way we can, and we're going to talk about all the key information we know from looking at it. Okay, so let's do it. So in subtraction, the error people always make is you do need to make sure you're subtracting each one of these values. So some people find it helpful to really just distribute this negative to everything right away. So it's going to be minus 4x to the third, minus 3x, and then plus 8. If you rewrite it like that, you're more likely to get it correct. So it's helpful. Okay, so now go ahead and combine like terms. So 2x to the third minus 4x to the third is going to be a negative 2x to the third. X minus 3x is going to be a minus 2x. And then negative 7 plus 8 is going to be just a plus 1. And so this is our simplified answer. That's us completing the subtraction. Now it says give all names. So there's two ways to name this. You can name it by its degree. You can also name it by its number of terms. So by degree, third degree is called cubic. If it was second degree, it'd be called quadratic. First degree would be linear. No degree would be constant. Then anything above third degree, we just call fourth, fifth, sixth degree, and so on. And then the other way of naming it is by its number of terms. So this has 3 terms, so we'd call this a trinomial. If it has 2 terms, it's a binomial. 1 term, it's a monomial. Anything more than 4, we just refer to as a polynomial. So this is a cubic trinomial. So that's the naming part of this problem. Now, the key info part. This is super broad. There's a ton of things you can talk about on here. So just to kind of go through it sort of in the order that we learned things, one of the first things we learned about was what we call end behavior. And since this is a odd function, it behaves like a linear would. But since it's negative, it's going to behave like a negative linear function. And it's going to have what we'd call an up and down end behavior. So again, graphically, that means that if you were to graph this, it's going to be pointing up here, it's going to be pointing down here, and it's going to be doing some things in between. Okay. Now, we don't know these exact points or anything. I'm just giving like a rough drawing. We know it's going to be up and then down. Okay, so that was the end behavior piece we talked about. Now, there's a lot of other things you could get into in here. You could talk about things like its relative mins and maxes, if it had any. You could talk about turning points, that kind of stuff. But really, without the actual graph itself, there's not a ton you could do. So yes, you could absolutely graph this. Yeah, we got time. Might as well talk about it right now. Why not? So if I went ahead and put this in my calculator to graph it, and we could talk about some of that other stuff. So I'm just going to kind of, in general, go over a bunch of the things you need to know from this chapter. So let's graph it on the standard window, see what we're working with. Okay, so it looks like this. So it is doing what we said. It is up and down. And there's a little wiggle here. Basically, it looks like it's going to have one y-intercept and one x-intercept. You can find those coordinates. I don't even think this would qualify as a relative maximums or minimums here. Let's go ahead and zoom in and see if it actually changes its direction at all. If there's any turning point, I don't think there is. No, so there's no spot here where it's turning from increasing to decrease or anything like that. So in this case, this doesn't have any of that interesting stuff, but we'll see it on the review when we get to it. So anyway, kind of the basics there. Make sure you brush up on your names, all your degree names, your term names, that type of stuff, and you should do just fine.